What's up, bro? If nobody told you lately, let me be the one to say it. You a good man. In a world that's quick to broadcast your faults, but slow to recognize your worth, I know it's not often you hear these words without strings attached to them. Appreciate it not for what you can do or provide or become, but simply for who you are right now. And it seems like every podcast or social media platform got something to say about what you're not doing, or who you're not being. But I need you to tune out that noise and tune into this truth. You are more than enough. Remember who you are at your core. You got a heart that tries and tries day in and day out, even when it's hard. Man, it's not about being perfect. It's about being present, being real. You don't need to prove anything to anybody as long as you stay true to yourself. Yes, handle your business. Yes, take care of your responsibilities. But understand, even though you expected to, you don't have to have it all figured out. You got to give yourself that same grace because you still growing like everybody else. Remember, you're not defined by what they say you should be. You define yourself by who you choose to be.
But here, let me talk about the post though, right? Because we gotta acknowledge it for a second.
Exactly. You just kind of skimmed over that, brother.
But I mean, it's so many of them. There are several that have gone viral, right? Like I mentioned to you all, I sent it out to a few friends, and one guy sent it right back to me, right? I want to make sure that you also saw this for yourself as well. But I think to your point, where you got tons of guys coming on there and that are commenting. And maybe they're not even saying that out loud somewhere else, but they feel
They're
okay.
not.
They're not.
Fair that they are not actually saying it. But you've given them the agency to be introspective, right, and be okay with what they find,
Yeah.
right. And those posts, man,
Yeah.
absolutely. Look, I just say I thank you because I
Appreciate
send that out to my look. This cat received several, right, and I send them straight over to him. But we just appreciate you. Providing that opportunity for folks to feel okay and to feel seen.
Hey,
I
man,
appreciate it.
go on to toot your horn real quick, bro. How many people did it reach?
As of now, it's up to 5 million. 5 million people on one platform and probably another million on another platform. And for me, it's not about the numbers. It's
No,
the
I get
data.
that. I get that.
It's the validation.
Sure.
It's the like you fact that these brothers being seen. Had one young brother say he was about to go to college and he was trying to figure out who he was, what he should do, and all these different things. And he said that was exactly what he needed, going forward, to really be able to stand in who he is and who
Right.
he wants to be,
Right.
without being, defined by all of the other things. Yeah. And that meant a lot, because a big reason why I started doing so many things for men is because I felt like I wanted to speak to the younger version of me, who I felt like I needed and wanted during that time that I didn't have. So I felt like I'm filling that void and understanding that there's so many young men that grew up like me and may not even necessarily specifically like me, but we still have so many of the same struggles and the same things that we go through. And, we all need that.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're all here together talking about it and still talking about the same things with all these generations just let you know that it hasn't went anywhere.
Yeah.
Validation.
Yeah.
Validation to the point.
Yeah. No, that's good. Let me ask you guys this. And it's funny because there's some here at this table who grew up with their fathers, some didn't. So it may or may not be him. But who are or were or are some of the bigger influences in your life? Influences.
For me, it's my grandmother.
Okay.
Yes, that's her legacy. I feel like is not just all of the family, but me. I felt like she poured so much into my education, so much into faith, so much into family. so much into my trust in God and just helping people, knowing that everybody's struggling with something
Yep.
and everybody needs help and being able to lend that hand. So, and yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Absolutely.
Anybody?
With myself, my dad, high school teacher. So his school day ended at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So he was the one parent that was in sports in high school. Junior high school. He was the one parent who was at every sporting event. So much so to a point where my teammates loved him and adored him. As if there was nobody else in the stands. Yeah, he really did. He was the one who was there. But, it didn't stop with the sports. It was the parent-teacher conference. It was the PTA. It was the this, that, and the other. And, I tell people all the time, he was so consistent. I wanted him to be inconsistent.
That's what I was wondering. I was wondering.
Dude, are you around he was around all the time. And I'm so grateful for that, man, and just feel like I had to give that to my kids. They couldn't get any less than that from me. They couldn't get any less.
The crazy thing is that you didn't, that you had that and I didn't. Now I'm that.
Yeah. Yeah.
At everything.
And sometimes the lesson comes.
That's right.
From deficiency.
Yeah.
That's
That's
where
right.
most of mine
Exactly.
came from when it comes to being a father.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
Same.
Are you? And I know we got room to move around here. Are you overpouring into yourself?
I don't think so. I mean, of course, all of this stuff is a journey and a on the job training.
Yeah.
When you're figuring
Yes,
out,
yes,
and
it
each
is.
kid is different.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I try not to be too intense, but when it comes to us, we understand what's out there.
Right.
We understand being prepared.
Yeah.
And we feel like a lot of our success as a father is preparing them for that. And unfortunately, a lot of the lessons and the realities that we have to talk about and to prepare them for takes that.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, we feel like we're setting them up,
Absolutely.
not only for failure when it comes to us, we're talking about their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I try to find some balance to let them be a kid or let them be a kid, but at the same time to be able to talk to them, hear them out.
Yeah.
Unlike what what
Exactly.
we were like, hey,
Right.
we telling you
That's
and
it.
you listen, but to give them room to be able to express themselves and then be able to have a conversation with them.
That's the point.
We
Love
didn't
it.
have
Love it.
conversation.
Right.
We
Love
were
it. Right.
told,
That's it.
and we had to obey. So the fact that I'm able to have conversation with them, so they feel like they can be heard, they feel like their voice matters, and to let them know that I'm telling you this for this reason. I'm teaching you this for this reason. So as long as they have some kind of understanding of that, I think it creates a stronger foundation for trust.
I love that.
Yeah.
Contract. Yeah. But it's necessary, right? It's needed because, and I know, to your point, we deviated a little bit, right? But
we're good.
the when you come into corporate, what I often see for us or from us is everybody seated in a room, 20 people in a room, 20, let's say, interns or freshly graduated new hires. And the room, there's someone at the front that's discussing a particular topic. And you can go around and you can synthesize, right, who is actually getting the concept, who's not getting it, right? Standard, basic, right? We understand that. But a lot of times, our children, not only do we not feel okay to admit that we don't get it, we're not going to ask the question, and we don't have necessarily an opinion, right? And that having an opinion whether it's wrong or whether it's right, right? But the ability to be able to vocalize, to me, that's what you're doing. You are building that muscle in your children by allowing them to be able to have a conversation, right? In order for to have a conversation, that's got to be a two-way street, right? You need to be able to articulate yourself in some way, shape, or form so that we can have a dialogue. Right, not a monologue, a dialogue. We were in a lot of monologues, right? I remember them, yeah, right. You're trying to get a word in. But to me, it translates. Where I see you doing, or where I can, absolutely see the trajectory is your child coming into an environment where they're not afraid, and the expectation is that they have an opinion on what it is that they're ingesting, and that right there is just something that's going to take us light years away from where we are today and how our children actually enter into the workforce. If they're going to enter in the workforce, they might just be a boss.
Exactly. Which mine thinks the same way.
That's it. Yeah. Same thing. Mine was going to be a YouTuber for 20 years.
Yeah. And what your statement made me think about, not only with the dialogue, but giving them the right to think. Tell them how powerful thinking is.
Yeah.
And that as you were talking, it took me back to us way back in the day. And the thing that they tried to keep us from doing the most
Was
think.
Absolutely.
We don't want them to think.
Yeah.
They start thinking, they start figuring things out and creating things and seeing their power.
Yeah.
We in trouble.
Yeah.
So giving them the ability and the understanding how powerful it is for them to use their own
exactly
brain and not just take this input in and say, okay, this is fact.
right.
Yeah.
You got the right to question,
Yeah.
to try to get understanding, to try to get clarity, and how important that is. And you're right, that's exactly what you're teaching them.
Yeah.
Because if you're able to do that with me, your father,
Exactly. In a safe space.
you can do that to anybody.
Anybody.
I mean, I question my daddy, so I'm telling this boss, this person, this teacher, this
There you go.
coach,
Yeah.
this
There you go.
whomever,
Yeah.
I need to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to me, that next step, right, is the superpower of understanding what you do well, right? So all these group projects that they put them in, right? And once you're hit high school and then definitely in college, trying to get them to understand that we collectively have to have a diversity of thought, a diversity of talent. But if you don't understand to have the thought, number one, and opinion number two, and then develop and understand what is your superpower, then when you get to a workforce environment, when you've got to collaborate, you don't even understand how you fit in, where you fit in.
And the ability to express that. It's and it's just interesting. I was listening to all the conversation, and man, we got slavery did a number.
Oh, man.
on
Yeah,
us.
you knew what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
I knew
Yeah.
exactly where you were going, right? Because think about that, man. When you talk about like our parents, and they did the best that they could with what they had.
What they
right?
had.
Absolutely.
But they were parenting from a slavery-based model.
Absolutely.
Think about this whole idea. I don't know where you land on corporal punishment or what they would call whooping.
Right.
Right? Think about a lot of our parents and grandparents whooped
Yeah.
their children.
Yes.
Where did they get
Oh,
that
1000%.
model from,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And
I
then
never
we
thought about
think
that.
in our community, like,
Yeah.
that's the norm. Oh, that baby they need is a whooping, right? Like, wait a minute. What? So that thinking and how that was like ingrained
And indoctrinated.
indoctrinated.
Absolutely.
And then this idea around like I tell you what to do as a parent. You don't question me.
Yep.
Right.
You do what I. Those are slavery-based
Yeah.
models
Absolutely.
that
Wow.
our families literally
100%.
were indoctrinated within them and passed down
Exactly.
generation to
Generations.
generation, right? And so to be able to break that mold now and not allow our children, but create a space,
yep.
for our children to be able to express themselves, to challenge authority and things of that nature is huge. It's huge.
And
Yeah.
no, I mean, come on. How can we expect our children and our offspring to have been able to compete at the same level when that was what that was the environment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That was where, and then you have someone else, non-melanated. I love it. I'm gonna steal that one. Too. Our counterparts, they didn't have that, right? And so they're competing on they're entering the race. We all understand how it goes, right? But if we really dig down and unveil the curtain, right there, it's just a masterful plan that was executed, and we're just now realizing and waking up and trying to change that.
It's funny because I remember my mom probably a couple years ago. We were trying to potty train my daughter, and my mom was like, "Well, if you whoop her, she'll stop peeing on herself." And I'm like, and here was my comment to my mom. So you do know the older you get, the probability of you pissing on yourself is going to get greater, right? So should somebody whip you when you start peeing on yourself
Make it
at
plain.
80, 85? Same thing. I'm not whipping my child because she peed on herself. We're going to talk it out. We're going to try to figure out this potty thing, and eventually it'll come around.
Right.
And man, again, it goes back to that slave mentality, and especially for those that were raised in the rural South, it's just like it's exponential in terms of how they go through it. So yeah, man, no, this is really good. Question for y'all, unless anybody else wants to answer that question in terms of influence.
You know, I do. I want to. My mother, hands down, gets the credit every time I get an opportunity to speak about influence and who I respect, who poured into me, right? Who created what I believe is my, my foundation. But I remember, to your point, Anthony, I remember, I don't even know how old I was. I must have been like early 20s, right? Almost as young as you. Right? But hey, look, you take all of that youth. But I was sitting in Walmart, and I saw a young child grab their father's hand, and it hit me at a moment to the point that I can still remember it to this day. And I had a vision of my first child and putting them on my shoulders and walking them through Walmart and what that would feel like. At that moment, I was like, I can't wait to be a father. I can't wait to pour into a vessel and to be able to show them love. And so much so that later on in life, I had to figure out, I'm a huge advocate for mentorship, as we likely all are at this table. But I remember people trying to be my mentor when I was young. And guys specifically, I had to go back introspectively and understand, why did I not let the gentleman be my mentor? And I realized it was my relationship with my father. I had very, very much so trust issues with guys. And I would let a woman in immediately, but let some man try to step up and guide me, nurture me, put me in the right path, whether they were from church or from whatever walk of life. And it was a barrier. It was instant wall. And it wasn't until later I realized that trust. I had a hard time trusting men. And so, again, I try to replicate it as much as I can, which is why I'm such a big advocate for mentorship now, especially for this youth that's coming into corporate, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I had to get that in deep.
No, that's what's up, bro. That's what's up. So, what is that one significant life event or event, whatever, that has sort of changed the trajectory of your life? Anybody?
I'll go because I talk about it in my first book, where in 2006 I was engaged. My fiance was about to graduate college. I just had got a new job in Charlotte, and we were about to move after she graduated. I started the gig. I was kind of going back and forth, and still kind of when I was in town staying at my grandmother's house while I was working and training. And within 30 days, a lot of stuff happened. Within 30 days, the engagement was off. I'm pretty much out of the house. Didn't have anywhere to live.
Wow.
So the day that she was walking across the stage, I was at our house getting the stuff out for me to move back.
Wow.
You talk about
Wow.
irony. And at that point, I'm thinking, we think that our life is going to be in a certain place, especially me with her so long. We knew that, okay, this is what this is about to be like. This is the vision that I'm building. And of course, life always showed us. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that. Yep. And you're talking about getting knocked down the rock bottom, feel like you're starting from scratch. This is the place. I'm back in Rock Hill, in my neighborhood, staying at my grandmother's house. Really didn't have any place to go. All my stuff is still in the U-Haul. I don't know where I'm going. I'm pretty much homeless. Wow. So I remember sitting on the porch, U-Haul in the driveway. This is the place that I fought so hard
To leave.
to leave.
That's right.
Not to leave as in, oh, I'm trying to get far away from here. I'm trying to go get what I need to get, learn what I need to learn, and come back and empower my people and make my neighborhood better.
Love it.
But when you think about it, I'm back right where I started.
Yeah. Yeah.
That right there, that's what put me on this trajectory. That's what got me into understanding personal growth. This is what got me into I actually have control and power over what happens with my life next. A couple weeks later, I got something in the mail, and I'm like, nobody even knows that I moved. It's not even a name on this package. I open it up. It's a video. I said, okay, somebody sent me a video. Pop the video in. It's The Secret.
You hear everybody.
My boy had sent me. This is when it first came out, before people even knew about it like that.
Yeah.
He sent me the movie. I watched it. I'm like, and even if you don't believe everything in it, what it did for me is tell me that what you believe to be true is not necessarily true, meaning that life is just going to happen. You just got to deal with it. You pray about it, and whatever happens, happens.
Right.
What that reminded me is that you actually got some control. You got some power. You get to decide.
That's right.
You get to learn and understand yourself and understand your power and be able to decide where your life goes from here. Just so I won't belabor and talk too much longer, fast forward, talking about roughly 10 years later, I met back up with my wife. We reconnected. Let me tell you this real quick beforehand. This just goes back to the power of that. At the time I was a manager at a Men's Wearhouse. People rent tuxes, they got weddings or whatever. And I was thinking about the whole law of attraction. I'm like, that's really working. I'm at the worst place in my life. First time I told a story in public. First time.
Okay, exclusive.
I get this.
There's an envelope that we do when we fill out to say, okay, this person's in your wedding, this person's in your wedding. I filled out an envelope for our wedding.
Wow.
This was, gone. I'm not even talking. This is the worst. This is like impossible for this to happen.
Manifestation.
I filled out an envelope for our wedding. 10 years later, November, that's when we met. November, we would get married.
Wow.
Talk about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Okay.
crazy.
So the lottery numbers I need to get for me. And it can happen in 10 years. That's fine.
Right.
Preferably.
Right.
Man.
Yeah, man.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
I need to know what stock to buy on
Right.
Monday morning when the
I
market
need to
opens.
know too. I need to know too, man. But yeah, that's what put me on that trajectory. That's when I started reading everything I can read. The Power of Now, Think and Grow Rich, just all the different things.
Right.
Like, look at all of this different knowledge and perspective. I had no idea. Nobody's introducing us, telling us about this stuff because they didn't talk about it. They didn't read it. They didn't know anything about it. They were just teaching from what they knew. I'm like, man, there's so much knowledge and so much understanding and so much perspective that's out here that I can use to change my life. Once I learn it, and I love to learn, and once I learn it, I love to teach it. That's what put me on the trajectory of doing what I'm doing now. Everything that I learned, I'm like, man, this can change people's lives. I have a responsibility to do it.
I love that.
So that's what put me on the trajectory to start sharing these things, even when nobody was listening.
Hey, if you don't believe God has a sense of humor, tell him your plans.
That's right. That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
And see how funny it is.
Yes.
That's transformative right there.
So for me, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but I suspect we got the same trajectory. I could be wrong. So we grew up in a neighborhood that sat right on the border between Raleigh and Garner, North Carolina. It's called Gatewood. It's one way in, one way out. It was a typical neighborhood, black neighborhood, where you had the old heads walking around, and it's not unusual for a 21-year-old male to have a 15-year-old girl pregnant. It's one of those kind of neighborhoods. It was my ending of my junior year in high school. Neighborhood's getting really bad. Everybody on the corner smoking weed, doing whatever. My mom, who worked her tail off, decided that I need to get my kids out of this neighborhood. We moved into a townhouse. We sold our house, moved into a townhouse near the high school that we attended, near Garner Senior High. We went from a all black neighborhood to now a predominantly white neighborhood
Wow.
going into my senior year. I could have easily got caught up in the I'm going to hang out on the corner. Well, I shouldn't say easily because my mom whooped ass. I just gotta say that. So it wouldn't have been easy. It would have been. I could have done it. It wouldn't have been easy. But she had the foresight and the bandwidth and everything else to say, you know what? If I don't get my kids out of this neighborhood right now, before it's too late, I am going to lose them. Mind you, we talk about our dad, but my mom and dad weren't together. They divorced when I was in the ninth grade. So my mom was basically a single mother, even though my father was very involved in our lives. And so I needed it because I needed to get out of high school and run off to college. He probably needed worse than I did for us to be out of that neighborhood. Because I think you were probably eighth grade, ninth grade tops. So he was really in those influential years where I was pretty good. Because not only that, I had a really solid friend circle. So all of my friends were doing really well. So I had no choice but to follow suit.
Right.
And what they say, show me 5 of your friends and I'll tell you how you're going to be or who you are, whatever. That was kind of my thing. My brother, not so much. I'm just going to be honest. And so he really needed it. And so for my mom to say, with everything she had going on, working multiple jobs, we were latchkey kids, just the whole 9 yards. For her to say, you know what, I'm not here, but I see what's going on. I got to get my kids out of this neighborhood before I lose them to this neighborhood. And she moved us. It was the greatest thing that happened to me. And I can honestly say it was the greatest thing, and I can't speak for him, but I will, that happened to my brother. Her having that vision to get us out.
Love it. Love it. Gotta love our black women.
Man.
Yeah, that's powerful. And to add to that, just to kind of give you an example of what D just shared, like some of my best friends in my neighborhood, and out of my 4 or 5 best friends in that neighborhood, they were probably smarter than me. They made better grades than I did. And out of that 4 or 5 best friends, I was the only one that went to college, and I think it was 2 of us that graduated high school. So you think about that, mind you, they were doing better than me in school at the time. Just as smart, if not smarter. None of them graduated. So you talk about the power of just shifting your environment, what your environment can do, and how that changed our trajectory was huge, man. So, but it gives you that heart for people who don't get out those marginalized situations, to figure out like, wow, environment is huge, man, and you only know what you see, and if you don't see anything different, then you're not exposed to anything different. You can't aspire. You can't.
That's right.
If your mind is not growing in ways, and so a lot of times it's easy to physically see, or you could read and your mind could go different places, but it's power in shift of environment.
Either way, it's cognitively challenging.
Right. Either way, yeah.
Either way. How did you adapt to it? Like when you moved?
Yeah, man. I think for me, I'm smiling because I would never forget we were in that townhouse, and I was in my room looking out the window, and out the townhouse community had a pool in the back. It's the first time we ever been exposed. I know that's to a pool, like, and it was the summer, and I'm looking out the window at all these white kids just swimming and splashing around, and I'll never forget. They saw me in the window. They were like, "Hey," and I just sound like a 1940s movie. It sounded like, "Hey, you, hey, come on down and play," And I'm thinking like, I can't swim with a dad, right? And so they were like, "We'll teach you." So I go down, man, and I'm a gamer, and man, 3 or 4 weeks, Marco, Man, when I tell you I got a tan that summer, that well, I was blacker and blacker and blacker that summer. Well, I loved it too. But it was beautiful because I spent all my time out there, man. And it's funny because, you know, it is a stereotype, but there's some truth in the stereotype about African Americans and not being able to swim, right? And just literally think about that, like. I was exposed to that, got the opportunity, and then took advantage of it. But I think for me, it allowed me to be able to relate to different cultures. I mean, it shifted. So, like, I go in, like, I was funny, we went running this morning, and it was probably like 40 degrees, and I had shorts on this morning, right? And the individual that I went running with was like, "Yeah, you must be hanging out loud. Hey, you out here, it's 39 degrees, and you got shorts on." Right, exactly. And but it allowed me to learn to adapt to different cultures and feel comfortable in my own skin, but also, you know, realizing that it's still the racism and stuff, even though they welcome you, still exists. And just a quick little story. So in that community, I became friends with a lot of white kids, and they really liked me or whatever, and they would pick me up from practice. I started playing sports and got pretty good at sports and stuff. But I'd never forget one of my really good friends. His mom picked us up, and it was during Christmas time. And we were all riding in the car together, and we were looking at the different lights in the neighborhood. And so there was this one house in the neighborhood that had different colored lights on, right? And we were all in the car, and she was like, and this lady would keep me in the evenings, take us out to eat, was just really nice. But I'll never forget, she said, "Look at that nigga mess."
Wow.
Right? And then she was like, "Oh my God." Because she didn't realize, she didn't see me as black and African American. And I'll never forget, and I didn't know what to say. Because I'm thinking like, did Miss Bass just say what I think she said? And then I had to act like I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
But I heard it, and that also just was like a reminder that some people are not beyond those stereotypes and that all that craziness. But all in all, man, I can say that it just allowed me to feel comfortable in my own skin. And just to tell my quick trajectory story that takes me back now to the black side of things is that because I was indoctrinated, man. Our school was mostly white, the country town. You didn't realize just how white it was, particularly when you play sports. Because when you play sports, you get treated differently a lot of times, right? And but I went to North Carolina Central for college, and so now I'm surrounded by black people, you know, all day. And even though, and I was an average student, right? I didn't do anything remarkable academically in high school. But it was the beautiful thing about going to a HBCU, there was a different standard that was required of you. And they had that model. I don't necessarily know if I totally lean into it now, but that you had to be twice as good to be considered equal, right? And my mentor, Dr. Ted Parrish, he challenged me to be great and not just average. And that was the first time that I had someone outside of my parents, not to just tell me what to do, but to challenge me, and to give me the opportunity to step up to the plate. And by him doing that and creating different opportunities for me, it changed my whole trajectory. I figured out, like, this is the work that I want to do with my life. And, you know, I had my first job before I even left college just because of all the experience that I acquired. And I was able to write papers and do presentations because of that challenge to, you know, continue to push the envelope. And it just allowed me to excel in my profession. And I think that was, you know, and I think about that as it relates to HBCU, like, that's probably the last time I've been totally immersed and being the majority, right? You got to think about that, right? Yeah. Being the majority, all I saw around me were mostly African Americans or people of color, and you know, I used to take that experience for granted, but I went back to homecoming for the first time in a long time, and when I tell you I felt so great, man, being around, like it was just awesome because we get out in this world, right?
Yeah.
And yes, we are told to integrate, and I think integration that's a whole other conversation, but I think it's a great thing by and large. But it is also very comforting to when you can be around your people and you can truly be your authentic self, like without thinking about it.
Yep.
Like I have to think about it outside of the culture, but within it, I don't have to think about it. I just am. Like,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
a difference, in
like
that. You could just naturally show up as your natural or your true and authentic self. But I think in our society, sometimes we have to be intentional about showing up
Yes.
as our true and our authentic self. And so,
Absolutely.
shout out to all the HBCUs. But
dope.
Hey guys, this is DB with the Sullivan Man Podcast. Hey, we really appreciate you guys rocking with us all these months. The feedback has been amazing. We hope to continue to bring you amazing content. We need a huge, huge favor from you though. We need you to like. I think that like button is somewhere right here. We need you to share. I think it's right here maybe. And we need you to subscribe. Come on guys, keep rocking with us and share this content. And we want to reach millions. We appreciate you.
I'm glad you had fun at y'all little homecoming.
Not a little homecoming.
you know when they put little in it, right?
That little homecoming.
We already know. I already know it's gonna come.
But you know what's interesting though, and a few things you said, Quan. I live in Greensboro, so close to the campus and the whole nine. So I have an opportunity to interact with students on occasion, and I'm on the board of visitors at A&T now, and as I encounter students, I tell them, you guys just realize where you are right now. Mm-hmm. And we mentioned code switching a little bit earlier. And it's like, you've got 4 years here in an environment where you don't have to put on. You can just authentically be you in all your beautiful blackness. And I'm not sure that they always get it. And, I'll say, well, check this out. Sometime in mid-October, walk out on the yard during that little thing called GHO, and you're going to see some grown folks who have taken the mask off for 4 days and are just wide open, loving, just being authentically black.
In their skin.
As a matter of
Just-
fact,
just being in
some of
their
us go
skin.
even further and just become straight ninjas
How about that?
for a couple days.
But you mentioned the trajectory piece, D and Quan. You mentioned exposure, and that was my mother's thing. From the time we were peewees, little kids, and in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, we were made to get up and present.
I love it.
Made to. So it just became second nature. My mother, family gatherings, Thanksgiving, every grandchild had to do something. If you play the drums, you play the drums. If you did poetry, you did poetry. If you sang, you sang. If you played the piano. But everybody had to do something. And she sent a script out.
She was serious.
Oh, yeah. She did.
yeah.
And all of us know it. Oh,
Miss Bobby didn't play.
Oh shit! Here go up, Bobby. Here she go. And but you knew you had to show up and you had to do your thing. They took us to plays. My first week in New York, a coworker came and said, "Hey, I got 2 tickets to the Phantom." Okay, Phantom of the Opera. I'm assuming. And that's what it was. Without the exposure for the Chitlin Circuit plays that we saw in Greensboro, I probably wouldn't have accepted and gone. Yeah. But because I went. One of the most beautiful Broadway productions I've ever seen in my life. But the trajectory for me, that point in life, it absolutely was career driven. And it was coming home from graduation at Wake Forest, and phone call, graduation day. Hey, Mr. Humphrey, we'd like to see you in New York next week.
This was graduation from Masters,
Graduation from NBA program.
NBA program.
And graduation day. And, had been talking to him, had interviewed a little bit, said, hey, we want to, hadn't interviewed. They said, had interviewed, said, we want to make you an offer. And it was National Football League. And National Football League headquarters. So I go from growing up in Greensboro, been there 32 years, and the league calls and said, we need you in New York in a month. And
Wow.
thank you. And again, first 32 years of my life had been in Greensboro, North Carolina, with all of my friends and family saying, you know what, you always been a little bit of a fish out of water here. You just kind of marched to a little bit of a different beat, and but what's going on? Like, I'm getting ready to move to New York. Like, it's where you were always supposed to be.
Wow.
But it wasn't. I was supposed to have been born and raised right where I was, with those same Southern, morals and values and ideals and the whole nine. And if I had gone to the city anytime before 32, it would have swallowed me up completely.
Wow.
As a creative, what it did for me, though, in regards to trajectory, just threw me into this incredible environment in Manhattan to create. And I remember my first day going to work. I had a subway ride. It was about 4 stops. And I got on the subway, first day going into the office, 8 different conversations, 8 different languages. And I said, I'm home.
That's awesome.
I'm home.
I'm still working
This
on that.
is where I'm
That's
supposed to be.
You picked up that number. Try to take it.
Can I lighten the conversation? And this is probably a horrible time to lighten this conversation because Shiana is taking up stuff off the table.
I don't touch this.
But it's a question I gotta ask because it is very, very real in this society that we live in. And this goes for the single brothers as well as the married brothers or brothers who who have a girlfriend or someone they're dating. How do you navigate these streets in this hypersexual environment that we live in, where everything is T and A? How do you do it as a married man, as a single man looking to find a relationship, as someone who's dating? It's real, man. Because like every time you scroll on your phone, it's there. Every time you turn on your television, it's there. You go to GHO, is there. You go to Central Homecoming, is there. You go to UNC Charlotte Homecoming, is there. You go to Benedict, is there. You go to USC, is there. Everywhere you turn. How do you guys navigate these streets, or these streets, as they say?
I got to jump in as one of the single
ahead.
guys here. It was almost comforting to hear you say, it took me a little while to get back out there.
Yeah.
And I was grieving.
Yeah.
I mean, legitimately grieving.
Yeah.
They say, divorce is one of the closest things to, grieving a death that you can experience.
Yeah.
I can attest to that.
Yeah. Sure.
We talked a few nights ago on a episode about the twins, the sister twins.
Maori
Tia
Tia and Tamara, and her husband, Hardrick.
Oh, yeah.
And he was on a panel, and he was like, yeah, y'all talking all this stuff, but y'all don't know, I spent a year crying myself to sleep every night, and it's been some of that.
You're a real one.
You hear me? You hear me?
I do. I do.
If you can figure it out, figure it out.
Wow.
we're gonna come back to you. But if you figure it out, figure it out.
Yeah, you can't look at no 10. Now you trying to figure your home situation out.
Hey, but it's out. But to your point though, it's out there.
It is out there. No, I'm just kidding.
Y'all can't say that, man. What look at I'm just gonna say that, right?
But no, I was almost confident in hearing you say, hey, you know what? It took me some time to get back out there. We talked a little bit earlier today. Man, straight, employable, financially, set. Love the Lord. Loved my mama. You a commodity. And what caught me off guard was folks coming so hard that it was just like, claws in you, and you're not getting away.
Okay.
And I'm like, I just came out of a 23-year marriage.
Swoop.
Yeah, I'm like, I ain't ready to go that deep. I'm not sure that I will get remarried.
That's a real statement right there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I will. Wow. I'm not sure that I will.
Somebody though, how you navigate these streets? Because that question ain't been answered yet. I'm just curious.
My thing for me, man,
Because you got to see it. I'm sorry.
I see it, of course.
Yeah.
It doesn't appeal to me. Like, no more. Like, my lens has changed as this has changed. What's coming through it and how I see it is different. It's not that I understand. I get it. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, when I see, like you said, they just putting it out there like that. At this point, I just be like, it doesn't appeal to me like that. So it's so much easier. I mean, besides the queen I have at the house and where I am, what's important.
That part.
You can get all those things anywhere, but the thing that's of value is the thing that you can't get nowhere but this one place. That's what makes that thing important. So my understanding of that and always being reminded of that, because when I see those other things, it's like, it's 1 in a trillion. That's how it feels now when I see that.
And the packaging, from a marketing guy.
Yeah.
So you got to, your packaging. There is no packaging anymore. So you already see the prize
Oh, absolutely.
as soon as you open your eye because there's no packaging.
Right.
To your point, the thing about it, what we value now is inside.
It's inside
the package.
The package. Yeah.
That's the
Right.
part they're not
That's
understanding.
That's good. That's good.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm at the house. Right?
You
And outside.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
We inside.
We inside.
We
Yeah,
inside.
And I work from home,
Right.
so I'm
You
absolutely
really-
in the house.
Me too.
That's it.
Look, I mean, I'm out and necessarily, from it's typically a strategic thing, right? Like it's a tactical. I mean, so I need to actually be at an event, right? That is something of that nature. Every now and again, I'm out, but it's typically with the wife, because I still value, like I said at the beginning, us dating, right? Going out there. Funny story, right? Like there's a guy. He was telling a story about how we were at one of those clubs that are for gentlemen, and he was like, "Can you believe John was sitting here talking to the lady like, where you go to school? Would you like? What's your
retirement plan? What's your goals?
Like, how do you feel about? Would you like to actually get a different type of role, or how are you?" And now, look, truthfully, I don't remember that, but it sounds like me. It sounds like something I would have said. To your point, it's not a value to me, at all. What's more of value to me is, can the wife and I get to that next level?
Absolutely.
That's more value to me, and I would much rather spend the time, right, and the personal commitment to really investing in that than looking at something like half of it ain't real anymore. That is right. You know what I'm saying? K-Dot, what you say? I want to see some stretch marks. For some real stuff. But yeah, man. I'm in the house.
We inside.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I use business as an excuse, man. So whenever I interact with women outside, we doing business. If we ain't doing business, no point of us having this conversation. So I just funnel everything through business. Of course, you see it's attractive.
For sure.
But like you said, your lens changed at this point in my life. I did that in my 20s, early 20s. I'm not doing it in my 30s. It's always going to be here. So now, if I'm talking to you, we talking about business. If we ain't talking about business, I got to go. I got to move around because it's going to lead to that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's like you as a man have to understand who you are and your limits. If you don't understand your limits, then you're going to fall for that.
True.
But if you know your limits, do what you can do.
Yeah.
Funnel them through business if you do business. If not, keep pushing.
I think it's a valuable point, right? Because some of us has been around the block for a little bit, right? We've been in there.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little easier to recognize and step away, step aside, whatever the case is. But when you're younger, sometimes it's hard, right? Like those preemptive moves that you need to make, to your point, saying, hey, look, it's about business. He's like, yeah, it's about business. So let's talk about the business, right? Yes, it is. You know?
Do something strange for some change.
Absolutely. Shoot, I'm trying to get on your page. But you know, you really gotta. To your point, you had to know yourself, but you also have to know exactly how to move. You know what I'm saying? You got to understand how to be able to position yourself in a way that shuts it down before it starts. Right? Like, look, oh yeah, I'll talk about my wife in a minute. Absolutely. Like when people say that the bill collector called and they start to tell them or start bill collecting them, right? That's how woman coming up like, man, you know what? My wife would love that top. My wife would, where'd you get that top from? Baby, look at this top right here. Right? Like, and immediately, I'm just not for it, man.
I'm gonna tell you something else, man. My pastor says this. There is no way that I'm gonna mess mine up and allow some other ninja come to the door while I'm picking my kids up. And they got a do-rag and a wife beater on.
Right.
And I'm picking my kids up because I messed up.
I don't want to feel
It's
that.
not happening. I don't want to feel that pain either.
Yeah, that's
I
tough.
do not want to feel that pain.
Because then I have to think about bail money and all kinds of stuff.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think, how do I navigate?
Sorry, wiped his eye.
How do I navigate this thing? Yeah.
Navigate.
Big Pepper.
Yeah, no, I think it kind of goes back to what do you truly value? What's really important to you? And as someone, you know, I'm 55 years old now, and so you start to really realize that this whole social media, it's an illusion, man. It's,
Yes, it is.
And that was interesting for me because once I started getting back out and trying to date again, you know, I did spend a lot of time just on social. And I started to realize, like, I had these unrealistic expectations of what, you know,
That's real.
women my age
Right.
range should look like. And I was like, wait a minute, because
Because none of them look like it.
I'm like, wait a minute. And so I found myself, you know, like, well, how old are you, right?
We can't be the same age.
we can't be the same age. Like, oh my God. But so I started realizing too that one, a lot of that stuff is just not real or realistic. And creating, reminding myself of like what's realistic, what's authentic, and then also reminding myself of what is it that I really desire and want, and being able, putting a pause in between the stimulus and my response. Right?
Well said. I like that.
I like that too.
Because one thing, I think, I've observed is that, I got you, D. You know, and this is just my personal opinion. I think it's true, but it's more of an opinion. Is that women really like to be look nice, right? A lot of times they like to look and feel sexy or attractive, and it's not necessarily for us.
That's
as
right.
Men.
That's right.
However,
That's right.
You know, but men, we oftentimes think it's for us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
A woman smiling at us, be like, oh, dog. No, she was just smiling at you, fam.
Right.
She really ain't feeling you like
Right.
that.
Right. We
But
go together now.
Yeah, we go together. Our egos like make us want to believe those things. But I think what I've learned is just putting that pause, man. You see, the stimulus is there. You see it, right? Sometimes they want you to see it, and you just have to say, okay. You have to pause for a moment and say, like, okay, if I respond in this way, what is it gonna cost me, or what are the challenges that are
Exactly.
going to come about?
There's an
And so,
opportunity cost.
Yeah, so that maturity, maturing in that way to be able to put that pause in between the stimulus and my response, I think has been
Stimulus
the
and my response.
the difference maker for me. Being and really wanting to. Be a good man too, right? Because going back to the whole fatherhood thing, and I love my dad to death. My dad was a great father. He wasn't a great husband though.
Nope.
Right? And so realizing that the duality
That's
of our
right.
lives, that you can be a great father and
Right.
not necessarily a great husband.
They are not
And
mutually
so
exclusive.
we learn from the upcomings and the downfalls, right, of our parents. So that's something for me that's important to try to also be not only a good father, but also to be a good husband and to remind myself of that's something that I want to be in life and aspire to, and that my choices and decisions can impact that.
Yeah.
We're gonna switch gears really quick, guys. It's again fun because we loosen up a little bit. Top 3, if you're into hip hop. If you're an old head like my podcast partner, maybe not so much. Top 3 MCs. Anybody go?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
Okay. Top 3. I mean, it's not a new question by any means, right? But things change.
Who's the best MC? Biggie, Jay-Z, or Nas?
Look, look, right. That's always gonna kick it off,
Yes.
right? And I'm gonna always say Mr. Nasir, right?
got you.
I'm gonna come with Mr. Nasir, absolutely.
I'm a whole fan.
I like Wayne. I like
So,
Wayne
but
in the top
I
3, man.
respect Nas.
I like Wayne in the top 3. His creativity was different.
I don't expect that from. I love that. I love it, especially with the whole Super Bowl debate, right? On
Yeah.
whether Wayne should have been doing his thing or whatever the case was. After it was 6,000 different Instagram posts explaining
Yeah.
to you
Right.
why. Right?
This is why he mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Carter 1, Carter 2, mixtape Wayne. Yeah.
Okay.
That's hard to get.
Yeah,
The top.
3. Top 3 is hard. I would say,
Top 5 then. Whatever.
well, I have to break it up into like generations.
I would
too,
agree.
Right? For me, like growing up, my top 3. I was a Big Daddy Kane fan growing up. I was Big Daddy Kane, Rakim.
I was gonna put Rakim in my top 5.
KRS
Maybe
One.
even top 3.
KRS-One.
Yeah.
And KRS-One. With the new generation, I like Kendrick. I like J. Cole.
Cole.
Cold tough.
Who else do I like out of this generation?
And of those two, does Kendrick top those two between he and J. Cole?
Not for me.
Yes, for me. So
What was,
I
what
look
was
at
the question with that?
Yeah, I look at it separate.
J versus K Dot.
Yeah.
Cole.
So yeah,
Cole.
Cole. All day.
I think Kendrick is a better performer. But when you talking about just sitting in pop,
MC.
MC,
Yeah.
A rapper. MC.
Yeah, I think J. Cole is a better MC / lyricist than all 3. I think Kendrick Lamar is the better all around artist of the 3, and I would say Drake comes with the pop hits. So I think they each have, in my opinion, like they have slightly different lanes. But J. Cole for me, as far as just
Yes, sir.
rapping.
Yes, sir.
He's
Yes,
the
sir.
best lyricist in my opinion out of those 3.
No doubt.
Michael Jackson or Prince.
MJ for me.
Same.
Oh, Juan, you want to talk, Juan?
Yeah, because I loved Michael Jackson as an entertainer and loved Prince as an artist. And I just kind of separate those two. So, but I meant it's interesting because the older I get, the more you hear about Mike. You start to realize he was genius level as well. He wasn't. He wasn't as he didn't play all the instruments, of course, that Prince played. But man, his ear for music and his being an entertainer and the attention to detail around entertaining
Innovation.
and innovation was huge. So it's it's tough. That's a tough one for me. That's a real tough one for me.
I got one. Take his personal situation out of the mix. Who could beat R. Kelly in the verses?
Long been debated,
Long debated.
and I don't know that I have an answer.
Beat.
Who could beat R. Kelly in the verses?
Yeah,
That's nobody.
Yeah.
it's hard.
That's a very hard one, bro.
Yeah, I don't think it's hard because I don't think it's.
You're right, exactly. You don't. It's no brainer.
No, it's a no-brainer. If that's the context, then yeah.
I mean, look, I do find it troubling. It's hard for me to listen to it. I'm not gonna front. These
That
days.
part is true.
It is. It's
now,
hard for me.
that part is true. Yes,
I mean,
agree.
and I know some people that's not that hard. They're like, look, he made great music.
They would compartmentalize.
Oh, absolutely. They can compartmentalize it with no problem and just get through the music. And I like, and that's fine. You know, I'm gonna.
I feel. I have.
Yeah.
We have a homeboy
conflicted.
that said, if Trump can be the president of the United States, I should be able to listen to R. Kelly. And I was like,
That's not a bad
that ain't
point.
a bad
Right,
point.
right.
You got
But
it.
you know, I thought you live by certain different rules.
Yeah.
When it comes to our unspoken.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So
If it's the same homeboy, DJ,
Yep. He's a DJ.
he also said in his professional capacity as a DJ, there was nowhere in the world he was going to stop playing the Bad Boys catalog.
Okay, yeah. I can absolutely understand a DJ or hear a DJ saying that.
In other words, he said, and I got to quote verbatim, as excuse the language, my job as a DJ is to make you shake your ass. That's what he said. He's like, so that's what I'm going to play. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, look, the catalog is ridiculous. Like, we know it's extensive, and it was, and let's not front like it didn't shape many generations.
Yeah.
Right, of music.
Yeah, and it ran the club from 12 to 2.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly.
the two. Lights come on.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Well, look, guys, this has been I know we're in the full grub mode now. It's been an amazing conversation. I figure this is a good time to wrap and we can eat and enjoy it. Any last words from anybody before we piece it out and dig into this meal?
I just want to say, man, I'm just so appreciative. It's crazy because the same time I had the vision of my book back in December 2023, this is what I seen. I seen a table of brothers sitting around having a real conversation. I'm like, man, that's the core. But I'm having it's such a challenge for me to find brothers and to put this together. And I remember we were talking earlier just about, you know, you guys actually doing it. Actually, you know, it's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to have a concept, but to actually get us in the same room, to actually have a conversation of this magnitude and just the beautiful setting and everything is just, it's just such a confirmation for me that not only is it needed, but I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Love it. Man. How am I supposed to say something after that?
Right.
You don't have to.
Yeah, in line. I'm not going to.
And last, I guess if we're on the wrap up end, I want to say this. My upcoming book is called The Man You're Called to Be, 100-Day Journey of Power, Clarity, and Rebuilding Your Life.
Love it.
What I'll say is that I had a conversation with my wife the other day as I was wrapping up. And she was like, you know, I was like, I finished the manuscript, man, after these 50 edits. She was like, so how do you feel about it? I sat there and I thought for a second. I said, out of all the books that I've written, I feel like every book that I wrote can have an impact on somebody's life. I said, this is the first book that I wrote that I think can change somebody's life.
Wow.
So as I put this out there, I'm definitely going to need the help of all of you
Absolutely.
brothers to make sure
talk
that
about
not because of me, by me being obedient to this vision and putting it out, the way it's supposed to be put out, taking a year to make sure it is what it's supposed to be, that it gets into the hands of the men that need it, because it not only impacted them, it's going to impact everybody who they influence.
Yep.
Right.
Wife, kids, family. And we already know how generations echo. We talked all night about how all of the impact of our the generations before us and how it shaped who we are.
Yeah.
And it also is about us defining who we are. We can redefine. We can say what success means. We can say what a man means. We can say what a father, a good husband. We have that choice to say, this is who I am, and this is what success means to me.
Right.
So I'm just saying this is a growth moment for me, because that's not something that we say. I need you, brother. I need you. Almost the only time we say something is when we feel like we don't have another choice.
Exactly.
When
In
do
the
your boy
corner.
come talk to you? Hey man, it is the worst that it can get.
Exactly.
So I'm coming to you because it's that bad.
Yeah.
I'm coming to you guys at the growth moment for me to say, hey, if this is supposed to be what's supposed to be, I need my brothers.
So this is what I'll say to that.
Yep.
We got you.
Okay.
And you know you got to come back and do a solo appearance on the Soul of a Man
I'm
podcast
coming. Coming.
when this book drops.
Absolutely. I'm coming. I'll be on it.
But look, fellas, let's eat. It's been real. We appreciate y'all. Quan, Jonathan, Michael, James, Anthony. I'm DB. It's been real. Soul of a Man podcast is out.